Hi, and thank you for watching us here at Tax Talk UK, where we talk about all things tax and also consider other important aspects of working for yourself, being self-employed, running a small business. So today I'm going to talk about how long you should keep your accounting records for. Before I do, if I could please ask you to take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll easily be able to refer back to this information if you should need to, as well as being able to navigate to other information that we have on a whole host of different topics, all aimed at supporting you in your self-employment. So back then to accounting records and how long that you should keep them for. So the exact time scale will depend on your trading style. But speaking generally, if you keep your accounting records for 6 years from the end of the period that the accounting period relates to, then this should be sufficient to cover all eventualities. So the reason that I say different trading styles have different specifics. So for example, if you are trading as a sole trader and submitting your self-assessment tax return, the exact amount of time that you should keep your accounting records is 5 years from the deadline of the submission of the tax return, unless of course you submit the return late. So of course, when the tax year ends on the 5th of April, the deadline is the following January, which is approximately 10 months after the end of the accounting period, and it's five years from then. So there's actually, when you break it down, there's not a lot of a difference in the actual amount of time that you have to keep the records. It's just the wording and the date that it's taken from. If you're trading as a micro entity, as a limited company, it is 6 years from the end of the financial period. So that means your year end date. So if your year end is the 30th of June, then it will be 6 years from the end of that. So obviously records that are early within the accounting period, it's almost seven years, but the most straightforward way is to think from the end of the financial period and keep them for 6 years. So if you have a system whereby at the end of the financial period, the accounting period, depending which is applicable, which will depend on your trading style, at the end of that period, put your records aside and then keep those records for 6 years, and then they can be destroyed. And once you've been trading for longer than that, then of course you can have a rolling system. So we've talked in a different video about what to do if you are keeping your records digitally within software, and the advice to keep your own record, because it is your responsibility to have those records available. So just some anomalies in those deadlines. So if you've purchased an asset that is still in use beyond the deadline, then you will need to keep those records for. If you're trading as a micro entity, then your actual statutory records, so your records, your minutes and your record of your directors and your shareholders, you do need to keep indefinitely. If you stop trading, or if you're a company and that is dissolved, then you still need to keep the records for the required time, even though you're not trading. If you are a private landlord, then this is important to remember, that if you have made capital purchases on the property, which means that you're not claiming them against the rental income as revenue expenditure, but you're going to claim them when you come to sell the property, then of course you must keep those records until you come to sell the property. If you are late submitting your returns, then of course that will influence the timescale that you will need to keep the records for. And if you are unsure, then you should check. So if you, for example, submit your returns late, invariably HMRC will notify you how long to keep the records for. But if you're not sure, then you should double check. So I appreciate that it can be confusing about how long you're keeping your records from, but the confusion invariably ends from the different starting point, not especially from the time scale. So as I say, if once you get to the end of your financial year or your accounting period, if you put the records for that year aside, and then once 6 years have passed, you can destroy those records. Of course, you should treat them as confidential waste and treat them as such. Just another thing to mention is what counts as accounting records for these purposes. So we're talking predominantly, obviously, your bank statements, your sales invoices, your purchase invoices, things such as statements from your supplier, statements of account. They're more for your for keeping your accounts sort of tidy, keeping on top of who you owe money to. It's not especially something that you would need to evidence your how you've come to your profit and loss and your taxable income. But of course, it's far better to keep something that you don't need than to destroy something that you do need. Another note on keeping records: if you have a genuine scenario that arises that means that you don't have your records, say for example, if you have a fire and the records are destroyed, you should notify HMRC at the time the records are destroyed, not wait until such time that they're needed, and you should do your best to recreate your records. So in that scenario, perhaps some of the information may have been sent to you by email, so you may be able to recreate those records, or the most obvious way is to go through the bank statements and try and recreate the records from that. And of course, keep any evidence of the scenario that happened that means that you don't have the records that you should have. So hopefully this has helped give you an overview of keeping your records and how long to do so for. Thank you very much for watching. As I mentioned earlier, if you haven't done so, please do subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Goodbye.